Welcome to Authors Revealed. I'm Becky Anderson. We are thrilled. Teri Turner is here with her launch. Her new cookbook is out in the world. It's called No Crumbs Left. Recipes for everyday food made marvelous. Teri, welcome to Naperville and Anderson.
Thank you.
And we are so excited. Today is the official day, the launch day.
Can you believe it? You get one pub date and this is it.
I know, one day, but it's always that Tuesday, so this is a special Tuesday for you.
It really is.
So let's talk some food.
Absolutely.
But congratulations on No Crumbs Left.
Thank you.
I know this has been a long time in the making because cookbooks are never an easy book to get out into the marketplace.
It's a labor of love.
Yeah, totally. So tell us a little bit, the book is just out today, but I know a lot of people have been anticipating this, all your followers on all social media and everything, but tell us a little bit about your anticipation of today, but also what you've been hearing from a lot of your followers.
Well, our pre-sales have sort of been off the hook. I'm delighted to say we're in the third printing, prior to today.
Yeah, that's great.
And, I've got a lot of followers on Instagram, Facebook, and on the blog, and it's all about everyday food and what you're going to make for dinner. So they've been following along on the journey, and they've really been championing me. And so they're as excited as I am, and people are getting the books and storing about it. And we had mini books or blads. We had about 50. So we had contests where we gave Crumbles, who are self-appointed followers.
That's great.
And so they've been making some of the recipes
Sure.
and sharing them. So it's really been a lot of anticipation.
And I know this book has gotten so many, we call blurbs, from so many other of your colleagues and friends and some very well-known people that are in the cooking and cookbook field. So lots of great praise already before the book's even in people's hands. So
amazing when your colleagues, go out to bat for you. It's been a lot of fun.
So tell us a little bit about your passion for food, because we know you definitely have it, and how that led to this cookbook, No Crumbs Left.
Well, thanks for asking. I've been a passionate foodie since I can remember. When I was about, 18 and left my house, I really began a foodie journey, which has taken me through births and deaths, marriage and divorce, and it's really been my mistress in many ways for my entire life. And it was really just being a home cook and loving that and sharing that, and my kids leaving the house and just sort of being ready for a new chapter and saying to a friend, I'm really ready for something new.
Yeah.
And so I never planned to be a food blogger, write a cookbook, have a platform with 750,000 people following on different platforms, but it unraveled and the train got rolling.
But a real natural process. So I think it's probably a truer journey than a lot of people who, you sort of fell into it, but starting with the joy of your own, of food.
Absolutely.
And cooking. Yeah.
I kind of went kicking and screaming, and initially we had to have a place to put recipes for people, so we had to have the blog. But initially I said to Zach, who is my colleague at work, I said, well, we're never going to tell anybody about the blog. We're just going to have it, and then we'll be able to give recipes. But we're certainly not going to tell anyone, and that, of course, didn't last very long.
Yeah. So this whole thing with, a lot of the recipes in the book are Whole30 approved. And tell us a little bit about the seeds that led to the cookbook. I know, of course, your blog and everything, and you have many people who follow your blog. But tell us a little bit about the Whole30 connection and Melissa Hartwood.
Sure. So I did Whole30 a few years ago. I loved it. I loved the way that it made me feel. And I also felt like if you can cook that way every day, I'm a gluten-free person already, but if you can make food cleaner, healthier, and have it be equally delicious, why wouldn't everybody want to?
Right.
So I did a number of Whole30s, and I contacted them and said, I would be a great influencer for you guys, because by that time I'm in the swing and I have a business. And so I went over and did a takeover for them. And what I like to say is initially, they weren't even 100% sure that I was the right person for the job.
Oh,
but I said,
yeah.
if you let me do this, you will absolutely not regret it. And I think 7 takeovers later, and they came to me at one point and said, would you be interested in doing a book with us? And I'd been offered books before, but it didn't feel right, and it wasn't something I was moved to do. But when Whole30 came and said, we got an agent for you, and we've got a publisher, it's like, how do you refuse that?
Mm-hmm. So a lot of the recipes in the book, I love the way you put, this is gluten-free, this is dairy-free. You put all the things for different people who have different food requirements,
yes.
which I think is absolutely fabulous. So you can adapt these recipes
absolutely.
And everything to it, which I thought was just absolutely incredible. But with the Whole30 connection, mm-hmm. what was it about Whole30? Because I know you and your partner tried it out,
mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
And he lasted on it for a few days, but it really stuck with you. And what was it about Whole30?
Well, I
that
think
really
it's just if
attracted
you can, if you're eating in such a way that it makes you feel you're living your best life, you know, your skin feels better, you feel better, you sleep better, it's attractive. So I don't eat a Whole30 every day. You know, in the Whole30 land we call it food freedom, but it's a real basis for my cooking. And I would say 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, it's absolutely the way that I cook. And you're not lacking for anything. I mean, they're beautiful salads and wonderful side dishes and great entrees. So you would never eat my food and think, A, it's gluten-free, and you would never think, oh, this is, you know, some kind of reduced eating. You would just be like, this is celebration food and it's wonderful.
Yeah, and the cookbook, the photography, it just makes you drool when you're looking at the recipes. It's absolutely fantastic.
Tim Turner is the photographer, so I can't take credit, but I did take credit in hiring him. He's actually a person I knew. Our kids grew up together, and he's a well-known food photographer, and he really championed us and taught us a lot. So we've been so lucky to have him.
I mean, they're just so vibrant and colorful. They're wonderful. So you've been many things, you know, with a food blogger, a columnist, a former event producer,
yes,
which I can see in some of the books. I can totally see your event background
absolutely
in it. And you've been an editor and, of course, a contributor to Whole30. But where did your professional life in food, when was that first moment that it really began?
Well, when I was, you know, sort of like first out of the house, my first job was actually in catering as an account executive, and that's before you had event producers. And I absolutely loved it. You know, you worked like crazy, and you went to people's homes and did these great events, sort of like we're setting up an event for tonight, and, you know, break everything up, and you know, break everything down, and it was so much fun. And we were in our 20s just having like the time of our life. So that's really how it started. But really my love of food and cooking led me to that job.
Ah, okay. So I know you started in being a food columnist.
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about that, because I think I read something that two guys approached you about doing this.
Yes.
And you had no clue, like, how am I going to sit down and write about food?
100%. They contacted me on Instagram on a Sunday night about 11 o'clock and said, we'd like you to food write for us. And I said, I am not a writer. I mean, I do know how to talk about food, but I'm definitely not a writer. And they said, why don't you give it a try? So I did a column with them, and it was, they were young guys, like 20-somethings with this, you know, fantastic publication, and they found me and plucked me out, and you know, really it was a right turn in my life. Like, I can never tell you, like, my life went from one place to another because of that direct message on a Sunday night.
Yeah, and I think that's really apparent in the book, because I love the way you introduce the recipes, because it's kind of conversational. It's really easy. And some people will look at cookbooks and they, oh, I can never do this. They feel intimidated by cooking. But I think the way you introduce them, it's a little bit of a story about the food
Well, it is,
itself.
and my thing is, like, don't be limited by these recipes, be encouraged by them. I might take it to number Z, but you might just take it a little bit. You know, if you take the pistachio pesto and you use it within your cooking or as a side, that's wonderful. You know, or if you see my chicken bites recipe and you want to do the green beans and you want to do the little sweet potato croutons, fantastic. But maybe you just want to do the chicken bites because that's more of a weeknight eating. So don't be limited by it. Just embrace it and use what you can. But it's really tips all throughout the book. So whether you're a beginning cook or you've been cooking forever, it's a lot of ideas about becoming a foodie and what that looks like.
Yeah, I think it's a great cookbook for those who are just starting out, because the freedom to try different things.
Yes.
Because sometimes you have to follow the recipe, you know, everything. Yes. By the word. So I love the dedication to the book, to your mom.
Yep.
It was so sweet. And I read something that your mom was not so much of a cook. She thought of cooking as a chore.
Really did her whole life. I mean, she hated to cook.
Yeah. So what was your childhood like with a mom who thought cooking was a chore, but what was the joy that you found as a child in food?
Well, my mom, our house was filled with music, love, and laughter every day. So she knew how to put a meal on the table, and we were certainly fed, but she didn't have any joy in cooking. So I had an amazing childhood with, you know, we were so totally loved, and there was so much joy in our home. But I didn't really think of cooking at all until I was out of my house. And then I realized, like, you know, my life is my own to embrace. And I could have a different path than my mom. Yeah,
and I think you said that your mother would be so proud that she took something that maybe she thought was a chore. You've made it such a career out of it and done so well with it.
She would love it. And I've gone 19 years. I still believe in some ways she's watching.
Yeah, for sure. You know, some of your friends call you the kitchen goddess.
Isn't that great?
I love that. So tell us why, and how can we be a little bit of that kitchen goddess in our lives?
First of all, I think there's a magic in cooking, and there's a magic in cooking with love and really putting your love into the food, because when you eat Thanksgiving dinner, it's so much better than any other meal, but it's because we really put our love and intention into it. So we can all do a little bit of that every single day, and it's like, go out in your community, meet the farmer, meet the baker, meet the local, purveyors, because food doesn't come from the grocery store. See where it starts, meet those people, embrace that path. We're going to be cooking the rest of our lives, so we can't be afraid to get in the kitchen, because succeeding in the kitchen is a lot about failing first.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And you'll learn probably a lot more from the failures than you do from the successes. So, I love the section on Thanksgiving.
Thank you.
And how it's your favorite holiday.
It really is.
And all the different things to prepare. It's not just the food, but the way you set. That's your event planner in there coming out. But I thought that was wonderful. And I love the way you organize the book, because starting off with the things that you need to have on hand, the kind of tools you need to do it, and then breaking it up. But I love the family section, because I think you talk so much about and how important friends and family and food, I call it the 3 Fs, getting those things together and how important that is. And what's for dinner?
Yes, I love it.
As a mom myself, it's such a hassle. What is for dinner?
Absolutely. Yeah. And if you make the Greek lemon chicken, or my shrimp pad thai, or my Eastern Asian curry, there are so many wonderful ideas. And again, it could be, just the inspiration, like Hurley's spice rub. It's a great spice rub, and you can do that unbelievably easy pork dish. But if not, put it on an everyday roast chicken breast with bone on, skin on. You've got an easy dinner in 35 minutes.
Yeah, and I love the way you talk about the magic elixirs.
Thank you. Thank you.
And those, I was looking at those, and they're easy, but they're going to make everything taste.
100%.
The flavors will be incredible. Yeah.
And it's really what you bring out. If you just get home from work and you don't have a lot of time, but you've got the tomato confit and the garlic confit, you can make an unbelievably delicious pasta or rice in a moment. You can put my marinated onions on top of breakfast greens and eggs. You can put the pistachio pesto layered on a chicken breast. There's 100 ways to use it, and the sky's the limit.
And your marinated onions, I'm making those tomorrow.
I love it. You got to get a bowl. The bowls are fantastic.
Yeah. But I love the fact that the food is also wholesome.
Absolutely.
And no matter what recipe you're going to make, it's going to be great for you. And it's not just going to taste incredible, but it's going to do good things for your body as well.
It's going to do good things. And I'm an old-fashioned gal. I use the oven. I don't have a pressure cooker. I just really like slow cooking, and I love just cooking on my stove.
Yeah. I think producing a cookbook, and we talked about it a little bit before this, but putting it all together is such a long process. So tell us the journey about putting it together. It's not just collecting the recipes, but it's sort of like you're cooking, and you just kind of do a little this and this, but putting it down, making sure the photography right, putting it all together. It's a lot different than publishing a novel.
It is. It's a huge process. Beginning from there's just the recipes. What do I want? What do I want to make? What that's like. And then it's the testing many, many times to get it right and say, does this make the cut or does it not? So there's all of that. And that's months and months and months and months. And in the beginning, you're like, in the middle, you're like, this is crazy. Why did I do this? How do I get out of it? It's awful in the middle. Then you come kind of to the end of it. And then I said to myself, well, what more do I want to say? Because I'm going to write a book. How do I bring who I am, who my family was? How do I bring that all into the book? And that's really the fun part. So I wove all the positive thinking quotes that are placed very specifically on certain dishes, and all of the tips, and then I was able to put some of the chapters in about my parents, and the 48 cooking tips, and the guides for salads and sandwiches. It was very intentional, and it was, that part is the most fun, because it's really curating what it is you want to say.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like anything. Even as, we as booksellers, we curate the books that we want people to read. And as you, as a chef and a cook, you want to curate those recipes to share with others.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so important. So you're a Chicago native.
I am, absolutely.
So did you grow up in the city, or where did you?
I grew up in Deerfield.
Deerfield, okay.
But I moved to the city when I was about 18, and I've been living there ever since.
Okay, so I want to know, how did the Chicago food scene, or growing up in the Chicagoland area, how has that influenced you as a foodie?
Well, we've got an amazing city, and there are so many wonderful chefs, and I love to go out, and as a blogger and influencer, I'm invited to attend all kinds of things. So I'm always influenced by other people's food, and I really embrace those opportunities. And of course, jardiniere on everything, because I am a Chicago gal, and when I story on Instagram about jardiniere, people are like, other places, what the heck is jardiniere? Because we know what it is in Chicago.
Oh, we do. We so do. Yeah. So, so many look of us as cooking, and we talked about this, about being discouraged and intimidated, what would you think would be the number one advice you would give to somebody who's just starting out or picks up No Crumbs Left and they want to cook something out of it?
I would say do it. I would say don't let your fear keep you from doing anything that you want to do. Absolutely go for it.
And what would you say the essential ingredients that we should have at home?
Well, for me, Spindrift, always in my refrigerator. I like a bit of salami, a little bit of tahini, definitely beautiful protein, wonderful vegetables. I always have Icelandic provisions in my refrigerator. Olives, artichoke hearts, hearts of palm, greens, broccolini steak.
So what would you tell somebody who's just starting out the essential ingredients to really cook some great things, but some really wholesome kind
ingredients?
Well,
there's
recipe?
always my magic elixirs. So garlic confit, tomato confit. I love to have feta cheese, olives, beautiful greens, of course, Spindrift. And I make a lot of magic elixirs with Icelandic provision skyr. I just love that ingredient.
Oh, yeah, wonderful. And what tools are essential for cooking a lot of what's in No Crumbs Left?
As a gluten-free gal, you can get this amazing little slicer on Amazon, and as a gluten-free gal, it's incredible. But a beautiful knife, a wonderful pan, a great cutting board, a garlic press, these are some of the essentials.
And then, I was reading at the beginning, the introduction that Melissa Hartwig did, and she calls you her Julia Child.
You got to love that. I mean, could there be anything nicer that someone could say?
And we hosted Julia Child years ago for one of her last books.
Yes.
And it was incredible to meet her.
Of course.
She was one of a kind.
One of a kind. And I don't think it's an accurate description of me, but I'll absolutely take it.
I would take it, totally.
Do you know what I'm saying? I'll take it. I'll go with it.
Hands down, take that. That's a really great compliment.
But I think we're joined in our love of food and our love of cooking and that passion that has taken me through an entire lifetime. And I wake up every day pretty excited about what I'm doing to get in that kitchen. I'm in earlier than anybody that works for me, and I'm generally the last one to go.
Well, it's usually it's sharing with somebody else, but also cooking for somebody else and enjoying that with friends and family, which is so great. So tell me a little bit about the Friday favorites. I looked on,
thank you.
And I just signed up today. So
I love
subscribed.
it. And you got to sign up for Crumble because you get all the behind the scenes.
Okay.
It's our newsletter every Friday, and we're talking about whatever we're excited about. So every week it's just all of our favorites, and it can be anything from like a product to the arts to a recipe to a good idea to a way to give back to a concept. And our followers love it. So every Friday, people really wait for the Friday favorites. And if there's like a week where we're later, they're like, what happened to the Friday favorites?
Yeah. So I know tonight when people come to the event, there's some products that you endorse and we're gonna be having tonight. Tell us a little bit about some of the companies that you work with.
Wonderful. Well, I'm lucky because I've got Pre, for an example, for a brand that's sponsoring the event, and it's wonderful grass-fed beef and oh so good broth, because who doesn't love an amazing bone broth? Tessemae's, their wonderful products, and Lucchini olive oil and tomato sauces are, some of the wonderful brands that are coming along on the tour with us.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, I'm drooling again. So I want to know, when are you going to do a TV show?
Wouldn't you love? Everybody wants to be Oprah.
No, I'm talking about a cooking show and doing what you do and showing people how to take wholesome ingredients and make really food that's really good for you but tastes marvelous, just as the subtitle of the book says.
One step at a time, right?
Yeah, right.
One step at a time. We're just figuring out how to get through the 20-city tour.
I know, that's a lot. I was going to ask your tour. That's a lot of stops.
A lot, yeah. Midwest, East Coast, West Coast, Northeast. We're going everywhere, so we're pretty excited about it.
Well, thank you for starting the tour right here. It was fantastic. So what's next? What's next in your cooking life, would you say?
I always don't make a lot of plans because life unfolds in ways that I could never, ever know. So what we're going to do is we're going to finish the tour, and then we're going to look, because we've got the podcast, we've got the pottery business, we've got the brands we work with, and then we're going to say what is next for us and really evaluate what is it that we want to do next. I would love to speak at women's conferences, and there are all kinds of wonderful ones. So I think that's sort of next on my wish list.
Yeah, there's some great one of those that take place around the country. So I want to know a little bit about your kids and how they influenced what you cooked and what you cooked for them, or what they wanted to have you cook. So, and are they still influencers on what you do today?
Absolutely. And it's interesting. It always was my son, who's now 25 and a songwriter, was always a carnivore, and my daughter really was always like a pasta eater. So it was always just like cooking two different ways. Now my son is a vegan, and my daughter eats protein. So they're constantly influencing. My daughter, who they call No Crumbs Left Kid on Instagram, is constantly now, she's a new cook, and she's trying my recipes all of the time. And my son, No Crumbs Left Other Kid on Instagram, is making vegan food. So we influence each other all the time. And that's the great thing about the food journey, is that we should be influencing each other all the time.
Right. Fantastic. Okay, so these interviews, I end them with a little quiz.
Okay.
So these are kind of little books and a little food mixed in.
Okay.
So a quick question. So it's sort of a lightning round, whatever comes to mind first. Okay, what was your favorite book as a child?
Oh my gosh, I had a book and I don't even remember the name, but it was about two girls that split a room and got into a fight and they couldn't figure out how to get out of the room.
Okay, and what was your favorite food when you were young?
I would say French fries.
French fries. I did read that the one thing you would go out to get would be McDonald's French fries.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah. I love McDonald's French fry.
Okay, what was the first cookbook you bought? Do you remember?
When I was a kid, I had one of these Betty Crocker for kids books.
I had one of
and
those
I
too.
loved it. And there was like the Raggedy Ann doll with the peach half, with the raisin eyes. And I loved it. Yeah, informed my life in many beautiful ways.
And the illustrations were a riot.
Oh, yeah,
they
like
were
the
great.
three
They
little
were great.
ring and
yeah, right. Okay, and what is your favorite cookbook today? One that you...
I would say, like Nigella Lawson or Ina Garten. I mean, would be books that are favorites for me.
Great. And this is more of a book question, sort of a reading life. Is there ever a book that you faked reading?
Oh, in high school unequivocally. Yeah. I mean, I probably every book I faked reading for sure.
Oh, because people who say they haven't, I don't believe them. I don't believe
in high school, I don't know that I actually did any of the reading.
Good answer. Okay. All right. If you could have a dinner, this is you and 3 other people. So these can be chefs or writers, alive or dead. Who would those 3 people? And what would you eat at that dinner?
Well, if I could have anyone at the dinner, it would be my children with my parents. I mean, there's no, and it wouldn't matter what we were eating because it really wouldn't be about the food.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, and a favorite book that you shared with your kids when they were young? Do you remember anything you curled up and would read with them?
Everybody Poops. That was one of them.
That's a great one, and it's true. What was a favorite recipe that your kids liked?
I would say my minestrone soup or my chicken fingers, and by the way, they're in the book. Because not only are the whole 30 recipes, but there's an entire section of my family recipes, from my egg salad, to my cucumber salad, minestrone, potato pancakes, and chicken fingers.
Okay. And any book you've read your entire life that you could not tell enough people they had to read it?
I loved the book, The Map of Love. It was just like a beautiful story. And if you read it at different places in your life, I thought it was beautiful.
It is a beautiful one. And anything you're reading now or anything you're cooking out of? Another cookbook.
I have The Sweetness of Forgetting right now, which is a beautiful book. It's a book on tape because I'm a book on tape person. And I love Big Magic, because I like to read something that's personal growth and something that takes me away from the world.
And that's a good one for that.
And no, here's the funny thing about me. I don't actually read a lot of cookbooks. I mean, inspired by foodies all of the time, whether it's in magazines and Instagram, but I don't cook from cookbooks that much. Which is why I made this so much more than a recipe book.
Right.
This is a book for a well-lived life.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful book. So thank you so much, Teri. Thank you for sitting down with me, and congratulations for your first book out in the world today. But thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Great conversation with food blogger Teri Turner. She has her first cookbook. It's being published today, and it's called No Crumbs Left. Recipes for everyday food made marvelous. You gotta get this one. It'll make you drool on every page. Thanks for joining me on Authors Revealed.